Hey folks, I'm Richard Cooper, founder and CEO of TotalDebtFreedom.ca. We're here today at the Can You Imagine wall. I'm with my colleague Corey Andrews, who's one of our senior debt consultants. And one of the things we believe at Total Debt Freedom is if it's not in writing, it's not going to happen. So what we do here is we look into the future and take a look at some things that we want to make happen, stick them up on the wall, and then we work on making those things happen and complete them later. So Corey's going to tell you about a concept that he put together along the lines of helping kids learn about credit card debt and money. Off you go, Corey.
All right. Well, we really wanted to display this concept to the younger generation as getting as much knowledge out there as possible so that revolving credit card debt doesn't swallow them as they get older, and they can have all the information needed to help avoid that situation, but also to let them know that there are solutions in place should that happen.
So we're going to try to accomplish this goal this summer, doing speaking events to kids on topics related to money, credit card debt, and entrepreneurship. We've stuck it up on the wall. Hopefully we're going to accomplish it in the next few months, and we'll see you then. My name is Richard Cooper, and I have a company called Total Debt Freedom. That's a debt settlement company. We help people get out of credit card debt. So before I get into the presentation with the slides on entrepreneurship, I'm going to talk to you about credit cards and how they work. If you pay attention to this very simple lesson, you'll never have credit card debt in your life ever. You'll never have problems with talking to a bankruptcy trustee and throwing all your finances down the toilet and ruining your credit. The first thing you want to try to do is, one, avoid carrying a balance, pay off in full every single month. And two, if you're unable to pay off in full, something happens, you have an emergency fund, you can at least carry yourself through that for another 6 months until you land back on your feet. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. That's how you live off credit cards. Okay, if you ever get credit cards, that's how you use them, right? Paid off in full, get yourself an emergency fund. That's all you need to know. You guys have been talking about becoming a millionaire, right? You learned a few sound principles. What have you learned? There's 3 pillars, right? So what are those 3 pillars?
Stock market, real estate, and business.
Stock market, real estate, and business. Okay, so right now I'm going to talk to you about business, becoming an entrepreneur. When you get into business and you create a company, the actual act of doing that is being an entrepreneur. And that's what I've done. And I'm going to tell you a few things that I haven't told a lot of people in my life, and a couple of lessons that I learned along the way that helped me grow my business and become an entrepreneur. So what's an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially business, that comes with a lot of risk. Here's a list of the world's richest people. It's published by Forbes magazine. Names are over here. This is their wealth in billions of dollars, where they made their money, and in what category they made their money. These guys are all entrepreneurs. A lot of them are self-made entrepreneurs, meaning they went from the ground up. So you can see quite easily, if you want to accumulate a huge amount of wealth, a lot of these guys have made their money in business. I'm going to start telling you what I started doing to grow my business when I became an entrepreneur. So the first thing you need to do if you want to become an entrepreneur, and you're probably going to have to make a conscious decision to do this, it's going to be tough for you, but you're going to have to go home and quit your allowance.
What?
What? Yeah, quit your allowance. And the reason why I say you need to go home and quit your allowance is because, tell me what you've learned from getting an allowance by putting your hand out. What did you learn?
Well, I don't have an allowance, but I've heard of kids just like learning that money will just come to you and you won't have to work for it.
Exactly. That's what getting a handout from your parents, which is what an allowance is, means. It just means if you put out your hand, you're going to get money. It doesn't teach you a whole lot. My parents forced me to quit my allowance because they said, we're not going to give you one. They gave me a quarter here and there, and I asked for more because my friends were making $5 a week and I was getting a quarter. They said, no, you're going to have to go out and find something to do to make money. So that's where my little journey started. And the first thing I did was I started delivering newspapers. And the newspaper business wasn't that good, I figured, because somebody came into my house, they said, here, sign this. We're going to deliver newspapers every Tuesday, and you just take them around this route. This is the neighborhood that you have to go and deliver it in. And I learned that that was really boring. It was a lot of work for almost no money. I made about half a cent to 1 cent per newspaper delivered to the house. Does anybody deliver newspapers right now? Nobody delivers newspapers? Wow, I thought kids still did that. Okay, so what I started doing was when I got to people's houses, I noticed that they had these bottles, stacks and stacks of bottles. This is before recycling was a big fad and we had blue bins and green bins and stuff like that. And people had a lot of Coke bottles and Pepsi bottles and Sprite bottles and stuff like that, either in their garage or on their front porch. And I was looking at these bottles and I was thinking to myself, well, I know I can take the bottles back and make some money. So as I was unloading the newspapers, I would ask the homeowner, is it okay if I remove these for you and just take them to the store? And they were more than happy to let me take them away. They didn't give me any money, but because I was taking away their garbage, they didn't have to deal with it. So as I was emptying my big, heavy newspaper route bag, because it was a big, Super Duty bag that carried a lot of weight, I started filling it with bottles. So it was pretty much as heavy as I started out at the start of the route with the end of it with bottles, and I'd stop by the corner store and get some change. So I was getting about 10 cents per bottle, and I was getting like half a cent to a cent per newspaper. What's the percentage increase there? Does anybody know?
Like 10,000%. No, it's 1,000%.
1,000%, very good. So I was making 1,000% more that moment that I became an entrepreneur. So the next thing I started doing as I was getting older, I started shoveling driveways. Does anybody shovel driveways in the wintertime? Yeah, all right. How much do you charge?
Well, I have like people call me, I get around $8.
$8?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm 37. Back when I was like 10, I was charging $5 to shovel a driveway. $2, a little bit too generous. $8, probably not too bad, but with the rate of inflation, there was a kid last week, I think he was charging, what, 20 bucks?
Yeah.
20 bucks. 20 bucks is about right. I mean, if you have somebody come along and plow your driveway, it's going to cost more than 20 bucks usually, or in and around that amount. So you could very easily give yourself a raise the next time the snow falls and you want to shovel your neighbor's driveway, rather than saying, I'll do it for $2, $5 and free because I'm a nice guy, I'll charge you 20 bucks to shovel your driveway. Or you might want to work out a deal and kind of play the weather and say, rather than 20 bucks per snowfall, I'll charge you $50 each month and I'll come in and shovel it every time it snows. You could get a snowstorm every 3 days. You might see one snowstorm that month or maybe none. Okay, so that's another risk-benefit analysis that you got to figure out. But that's another way to become an entrepreneur in the wintertime as a young kid where you may not be able to go out in the workforce and make some money tax-free. Is anybody going to raise their prices now when they shovel driveways? Yeah? Yeah? Okay, good. All right. Next thing I did after driveways was I cut lawns. You can tell I did a lot of stuff outside, right? Delivered newspapers, cut lawns, all that sort of stuff. So next thing I did was I started cutting lawns. And lawn cutting was pretty good because, I mean, you'd have a full summer to do it, and the lawnmower wasn't heavy like shoveling snow. When you shovel snow, it can be pretty heavy, especially if it's wet. Pushing a lawnmower was a lot easier for me, and I made some money doing that as well, and that went on for quite a few years as well. Not only did I do my parents' lawn, but I also did a lot of the neighbors' lawn. Nothing that is worth anything comes easy in the morning, okay? If it's worth something, it's going to take a lot of hard work for you to get it. So who's an entrepreneur right now? Like, we've got a couple of people that do driveways and shovel snow and cut lawns. A couple of people, right? So there's a few entrepreneurs in the room right now. Think about what I talked about today. Maybe you might want to raise your prices for shoveling driveways. You might want to get into the lawn cutting business and make a little bit of extra money. Think about opportunities, because the earlier that you start thinking about this and doing this, the better it is for you to learn and make mistakes. It's easy to recover from it. And don't be afraid to go out and do something. If somebody says you can't do it, it's usually a pretty good sign that it's a great idea.